Viewers, hundreds of innocent Israeli citizens are dead or abducted. They were killed or kidnapped in targeted attacks by Hamas gunmen on one of the most consequential Jewish holidays. As Hamas fired rockets and its gunmen barbarously danced on the bodies of their Israeli captives, Tel Aviv dubbed the attack as the worst by Hamas on Israeli soil in a long time. The Hamas was elected by Palestinians and has governed Gaza since 2008. It has been declared a designated terror organization by many nations, the United States, the European Union, and several others. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed, and I quote him, that the enemy will pay a heavy price, unquote. And Israel's forces have launched a punishing counter-offensive. In response, Mohammed Deif, the shadowy leader of the Hamas military wing, declared enough is enough. Deif is of course menacingly alluding to his frustration with what many in the Muslim world believe is a, quote, never-ending occupation, unquote, of Palestine and East Jerusalem, the third holiest site in Islam. There's no doubt that Israel has been in occupation of Palestine since 1947 and has been at times self-admittedly high-handed in its treatment of Palestinian Arabs. Israel has often taken preemptive action, going into Gaza in hot pursuit of Palestinian insurgents, with little regard for collateral damage or even due process. But viewers, there can never be any justification for terrorism, whatever the provocation. And Hamas cross-border murder in kidnapping of ordinary Israelis qualifies as a gross outrage against humanity. Islamo-leftists won't tell you that Hamas isn't fighting a mere independence movement. The war being waged on Israel isn't about liberating Palestine, but it's about liberating land from infidels, quote unquote. This is admitted by the Hamas itself. I'm not making it up. This channel is not making it up. We'll come to that in a few moments. Naturally then, most of the leading democracies around the world have backed Israel over the last few days. This includes India. But no sooner had the Modi government condemned Hamas that a section of the opposition in our country, viewers, and some elements in civil society, and you can see them on your screens, began to rationalize the terror attack on Israel. Let's listen in to some of the sound bites, viewers, that have been coming in from opposition leaders.
के बलबूते पे किसी कौम को जिंदगी भर दबा के रखेंगे, ये नहीं चलता है। उसका एक ट्रेलर फलस्तीन ने दिखा दिया वहां इजराइल को कि आप किसी भी कौम को, किसी भी जिंदा कौम को आप ताकत के बलबूते पे यरगमाल नहीं बना सकते।
For Netanyahu, aggravating the relationship with Palestine is something which he needs for managing his internal political, difficulties. Hamas is a militant organization. You can term it as an extremist organization as well. By the same yardstick, you have to define the Benjamin Netanyahu government as an extremist government.
बीजेपी के एक बहुत बड़े नेता जो आज इस दुनिया में नहीं है, जो इस देश के प्रधानमंत्री थे, जिनका वीडियो बड़ा वायरल हो रहा है, उनके भाषण को सुन लीजिए आप। उन्होंने फ़लस्तीन के बारे में क्या कहा था कि अरबों की ज़मीन पर कब्ज़ा कर लिया गया है। हमने एक पोस्ट स्टैम्प निकाला था, सॉलिडेरिटी विद पैलेस्टाइन, वो भी आजकल देख रहे हैं आप लोग। हमारी शुरू से पॉलिसी फ़लस्तीनियों की तायीद में रही है।
फ़लस्तीन के ऊपर जो जुल्म होता आया है गुज़िश्ता सालों से, और वो एक बहुत लंबा टाइम हो गया है इस बात को, तो ये चीज़ रुकनी चाहिए और ये जुल्म रुकना चाहिए।
Viewers, this rationalization of what we've seen over the last few days flies in the face of hard facts. And on this show, I always present to you the hard facts so that you get closer to the truth. You can cut through the propaganda. You can cut through all the other nebulous statements that you are inundated with every day to perhaps mislead you. First, viewers, the Hamas may have a problem with the Israeli state, but does that give it the right to target innocent Israeli citizens? Will Indian leftists justify the cold-blooded murder of non-combatants? Here are some hard facts, viewers. Can all of these be overlooked? The Hamas has targeted civilians with whom they have no quibble. And when that happens, viewers, that is defined in any book as an excess, in some books as terror. Let's focus on the hard facts. In Kibbutz Reim, Israeli music festival is targeted. The attack came ahead of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, and 260 are killed in rocket attacks and gunfire. Innocent Israelis, viewers, nothing to do with any of the repression, any of the oppression, any of the crimes that are being attributed allegedly to the Israeli state. Noah, a woman and her boyfriend are abducted and sent to Gaza. They were only attending a music festival. God knows what has happened to these two individuals. They could be used as cannon fodder. They could be murdered. They could be, viewers, exchanged for hardcore terrorists. We don't know. We don't even know how they are being treated, even if they're alive. In Kibbutz Be'eri, an Israeli child is killed in front of his siblings. What has this young child got to do with the oppression of ordinary Palestinians? Parents were crying, family filmed by terrorists, their grief peddled in an undignified, dehumanizing manner. Who does that, viewers? Only terrorists do that. Hamas shoots a paramedic who waited for medical aid. Cold-blooded murder. These are war crimes. Gaza, a naked woman's body is paraded by Hamas in a pickup truck. The family identifies her as Shani Lok, a German citizen. She just happened to be there at the wrong time, viewers. If you saw those visuals, you would not be able to sleep. We've sensitized them. Shijaya. In Shijaya, woman tortured and abducted by Hamas fighters in daylight. You can see that photograph. God knows what has happened to her. Who does that, viewers? Who does that? Viewers, now consider the Hamas Charter. This is what its preamble and charter declares. In 1988, the Hamas Charter was drafted. Look at what the preface says. I'll read it out to you. Israel will exist and continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. Viewers, this is not a charter for trying to fight for some azadi. It is a charter of bigotry. What does this line mean? That the Hamas will obliterate, will finish. Islam will obliterate the Jewish state, finish all Jews. This is genocide, viewers. This is not a fight for self-determination. This is what the Mehbooba Muftis in this country are rationalizing. Article 7. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews. Then the Jew will hide behind the stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, "O Muslims, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him," unquote. Article 13, viewers, let me bring that out. And these are articles of the ruling establishment in Gaza, the mission statement. They reject, viewers, any attempt at bilateral negotiations, diplomatic negotiations. Article 13 says initiatives and so-called peaceful solutions and international conferences are in contradiction to the principles of the Islamic resistance movement. There is no solution to the Palestinian question except by jihad, holy war. Viewers, Article 28. This is what it says. Israel, Judaism and Jews challenge Islam and the Muslim people. May the cowards never sleep. There are millions of Jews that don't live in the state of Israel. You might have a quibble with the government in Israel, but can you have a quibble with British Jews, with Indian Jews, with American Jews? Should all of them never sleep? What kind of doctrine is this? As is clear, the Hamas Charter that outlines the organization's goals is a shocking document that drips with a vengeful xenophobia, viewers. If the conflict was merely a battle for azadi, why would that freedom have to come at the cost of the total annihilation of the Jewish race? Why would Taliban fighters want Iran and Syria to open their borders so that the Afghan Mujahideen can fight someone else's war? It isn't as if US-based Christian supremacists are calling upon the European Union to open all its land borders so that they can get a clear passage, a free pass all the way over to Nagorno-Karabakh to fight with Armenian Christians against Azeri Muslims. Make no mistake, Hamas is fighting a 21st century version of the medieval crusades, and what's scary is that it has been voted to govern Gaza by ordinary so-called peace-loving Palestinians that some Indians here in this country mistakenly praise as martyrs for the cause. Viewers, there are no parallels between the Israeli constitution and the Hamas constitution. Nowhere in the Israeli constitution is it written that the Israeli state exists to annihilate Muslims all over. Today, those that lecture Tel Aviv must ask themselves, what would truly happen if Israel were to suddenly open the Gaza border and allow the free passage of Palestinians into Jewish neighborhoods? Can these human rights lobbies, can all these politicians in our country, can the entire ecosystem of the left guarantee that Israelis won't be exterminated by many of their Palestinian neighbors because they have voted in this charter of deranged xenophobia? Viewers, think about it. Some of those people have voted in what? A mindset that Muslims must fight Jews and kill them. Doesn't this hateful Hamas mission statement expose the diabolism of tagging Israel as the sole oppressor? For anyone still in doubt about who is the victim here and who is the oppressor, let me quickly sum up the hard facts again for you. Islamists targeted innocent Israeli citizens in cold blood and not just military targets. Hamas targeted attacks on innocent civilians violate international law. Hamas Charter is a xenophobic document that calls on all Muslims to kill all Jews, and it is in the name of this charter that they govern Gaza. Hamas rejects any lawful solution other than that which can be arrived at by jihad. These are the charter's words. These are the Hamas's words. A majority of Palestinians voted for Hamas despite its anti-Semitism. What does that say about these Palestinians? Palestinian voters who back Hamas endorse genocide. Viewers, that's what it says. I want to open this up. I want to begin with Anand Ranganathan today. Dr. Anand Ranganathan is here with us. Dr. Ranganathan, it's bizarre. The whole world today is standing with Israel in its time of need, in its so-called 9/11 attack. India, obviously, being a civilized state that follows international conventions and the rule of law, has backed it against what is clearly a terror attack. But there are people on our soil, in this country, that think that Israel is not the victim, that it is the oppressor, and it somehow deserves what it is getting. Imagine if this had happened on 26/11, they might have said that about India.
Good evening. Thank you, first of all, very much for those very prescient words of yours for the last 5 minutes, and also the facts that you have delivered. I have 3 points to make, and I will address the question that you have raised as to why so many Indians, including politicians and journalists, are against Israel in this fight, which can be put as fight for survival of Israel. Number one, let's be very clear about this. The unfolding catastrophe in the Middle East is not Israel's fault. I repeat, it is not Israel's fault. Yes, as you also have reiterated, Israel has a lot to answer for on the Palestine issue historically. Of course it has. Don't we have facts at our disposal? But to redress that, by killing 700 odd Israelis, to commit mass rapes, to launch 6,000 odd rockets and kill and maim hundreds of innocents of Jews, is barbarism not freedom struggle? And then to support this barbarity in the world and in India is even worse. Many of the Arab states, Rahul, have blamed Israel. But then again, that is predictable because almost all Arab states stood against India and supported Pakistan in 1971. And you know who came to our aid not only in 1971 but also in 1999 during the Kargil war when there were sanctions in place against us? Yes, Israel. Doubtless, this is a massive intelligence failure on Israel's part for this catastrophic invasion. But there was intelligence failure on our part in 26/11 too. But that didn't stop Israel supporting us then. Number two, there is no doubt that by its actions now, Hamas has totally and possibly forever destroyed Gaza and any dream of peaceful Palestine. It anyway did not want two-state solution to begin with. To support Hamas is to support terrorism and destruction on an unprecedented scale. The shocking thing, Rahul, is that Hamas has even inducted underage fedayeen in this operation, and these children are now being praised as martyrs. As Golda Meir once said, peace will come when they love their children more than they hate us, unquote. Rahul, here is the preamble of the charter of Hamas so-called covenant, and quote verbatim: Israel will continue to exist until Islam obliterates it, just as it has obliterated others before it. The land of Palestine is waqf, consecrated for future Muslim generations until Judgment Day. Since this is the case, the liberation of Palestine is an individual duty for every Muslim wherever he may be. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. Then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, "Oh Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him," unquote. But here, let me not again snare the fundamentalists and spare the fundamentals. Rahul, the fact is Hamas is only following the fundamentals. The contempt for non-Muslims is real and defining and absolute in Islam. You can't shirk away from it. Al-Kufr Milatun Wahida. Disbelievers are one nation. They are separate. Do not forget that disbelievers are allies of one another. 873. Do not make disbelievers guardians. 551. Do not take disbelievers as friends until they convert and kill them if they refuse. 489. And among the non-believers of Islam, if there is one community, Rahul, that has been specially condemned and cursed, it is the people of the book, or the Jews. Jews have been called the worst of creatures, 98.6, 855, condemned to hellfire, 455, 98.6, called apes, 265, 7166, led by Satan, 460, eternally cursed, 447, transformed into apes and pigs and slaves of Taghut, 563. Finally, about this widespread support for Hamas's action here in India, from Congress and CPIM politicians to vapid journalists rationalizing the murder and rape of a Jewish woman who was then spat upon amid chants of Allahu Akbar. So why should you be surprised if you heard Muslim students at an Indian university today chant "Tera mera rishta kya la ilaha illallah"? Why should you be surprised if Indian Muslims who have never marched demanding rehabilitation of 7 lakh Kashmiri Hindus, victims of genocides living in exile, including you, Rahul, but have not only marched, but rioted in Azad Maidan demanding India rehabilitate Rohingya Muslims? You should not be surprised, because finally, just 30 seconds, Ambedkar wasn't, and I quote him now verbatim, quote, "Islam is a close corporation, and the distinction that it makes between Muslims and non-Muslims is very real, very positive, and very alienating distinction. The brotherhood of Islam is not the universal brotherhood of man. It is the brotherhood of Muslims for Muslims only. There is fraternity, but its benefit is confined to those within that corporation. For those who are outside that corporation, there is nothing but contempt and enmity." Are we surprised why so many Muslims, Indian Muslims and politicians and leftists are now supporting Hamas and the Palestine against Israel?
Well, I can't speak really for the faith. It's not my place, but viewers, let's be clear. We can all speak for Hamas because it wears its bigotry on its sleeve. It has dressed its website with xenophobia. Viewers, the Hamas Charter reads like the final solution. That manual of extermination penned by Hitler's Nazi Lieutenant Eichmann. That's what it is. And we have people in this country who are willing to give Hamas the benefit of doubt. Can you believe it? I want to bring in CPI MP, Mr. Binoy Viswam. Mr. Viswam, your party, you must have heard Mr. M.A. Baby draw an equivalence between Hamas and the Israeli state. Now, you've read the Hamas Charter. Can you point out one similarly xenophobic clause from the Israeli constitution that guides every Israeli government? A clause which reads, and let me put it out there, Palestine will exist and continue to exist until the Jewish faith will obliterate it just as it obliterated others before it. Can you show me something written like this, sir, in the Jewish constitution, even though it is a religious state? Can you please read it out to me? Because if you do, that's the end of the debate. I will fall at your feet and I will ask for your forgiveness and say you were very right in drawing that equivalence between Hamas and those who voted for Hamas and, sir, the Jewish state today?
Rahul, I listened to you very patiently till this time. You spoke for 5, 10 or 15 minutes, I don't know, but I was listening to you. My first question to you is that how many minutes will you allow me to speak? 1, 2 or 3 minutes?
As long as you make sense, sir, you can speak the whole show.
Okay. Now, but who decides the sense? You or the viewers, or the justice or truth?
Your
Who
fellow
told you that you
panelists
are
will
the master of
decide that,
everything?
sir. Once
Who
you
told-
finish.
who-
Now, you can
who-
answer
who
my
told you that
question,
you
or
are
we
the
can
master,
have this.
you are the last word in everything?
We can have a
Let
conversation
me-
about.
Let me ask this question to you. I came for a discussion, not to swallow whatever you say to me. I am representing a political
Yes,
party.
so, sir,
the
I have asked
Communist
you a
Party of
question. Can you
India.
respond to the question? I'll
And
give you the time to
I
respond
came for
to it.
discussion. Then my first question to you, my learned friend, is that who told you that I am here to advocate for Hamas? Who told you? Who told you? What right you have
What has
What
Mr.
right you
M.A.
have?
Baby said?
to put that hat on my head?
What has Mr. M.A. Baby
I
said?
am representing CPI. No, my dear friend, I represent the CPI. I am representing the CPI, the Communist Party of India. People like you, the great people, should know that there are 2 communist parties. At least that you should know. Even without knowing that fact, you are asking that you are a master of everything. You are not. You came with a preconceived notion. I question you. This is not the way to conduct a debate. You people are partisan to the core. I tell you very categorically clear that I am here not to support the Hamas ideas. But in the equal terms, I will tell you, I am here not to support you, supporting the Israeli terrorists. Israeli terrorism is great for you. And for me, both terrorisms are bad. Should be accused. This is the communist position, the left position. You support the Israeli terrorism like anything. You glorify them. I don't glorify the Hamas. I condemn the Hamas. In equal terms, I condemn the Israeli terrorism. Israeli terrorism is a great terrorism the whole world has seen. Don't you know it? Why should you hide it?
Okay,
This is
Mr.
not the
Viswam,
way
have
to
you
run a
finished?
debate.
Have you finished?
No, I want to say more. I
Yeah.
want to say more.
Go ahead.
Do you know Netanyahu?
Go ahead.
Netanyahu is a man. Netanyahu is a man who is isolated in his country from the people. Totally isolated. Now, Hamas is giving a room for him to have a political space. Otherwise, in the course of time, not very late, the people of Israel should have thrown him out. Now, one terrorism, the name of Hamas, is paving a way for the other terrorism, which is the Israeli terrorism, to escape itself. That means that one terrorism is in a hiding way supporting other terrorism, and you are also playing a party to it.
Okay.
This is not the way of religious activities. Religion is something great. Terrorism is not part of religion. You may call it any religion. Islam terrorism is not the real Islam. Zionist terrorism, the Jewish terrorism, is not the real Judaism. I know it.
Okay.
Certain people like you,
Have you finished?
People like you coming to the scene and saying, I have not finished. I want equal time as you spoke.
But you had
Equal
7
time.
minutes. I spoke 7
Then
minutes.
You can say,
Is this GNU?
I've given you
look at the
7
watch
minutes.
and tell me.
I had 7 minutes. I spoke for 7 minutes. sir.
How many minutes you spoke?
7 minutes.
How many minutes you spoke?
7 minutes.
No, at one stretch you spoke. At one stretch you spoke for 7 minutes. Then you continued 2 minutes, 1 minute like that.
Anyhow,
My friends,
Mr. Viswam,
respectfully,
what is the point you're
respectfully, I may
making?
tell you, we all understand.
What is the point you're making?
My point is that you people, my point is that you people are siding with the Israeli terrorism. While
Okay.
we are not supporting the Hamas terrorism.
right.
This is a simple thing.
Okay. So
And
can I ask you a
people
question,
forget.
if you
Why
allow me?
You people forget what Netanyahu is doing in Israel. You
Sir,
people forget why the
will you allow me
US
to ask
fleets
you
are
a
coming to the
question?
Mediterranean Sea now.
Am I allowed to ask you a
If you ask a
question?
sensible question, I will answer you.
I'll ask you a sensible question.
If you ask me a sensible
You rightly
question,
drew a distinction.
Then I will answer you.
You rightly drew a distinction between the CPI and the CPM. Very right. I was only asking you, sir, to comment on Mr. M.A. Baby. As a human being, do you think Mr. M.A. Baby, forget about whether you're CPI or you're, Congress or whatever. I'm only asking you, sir, as a human being, do you think what Mr. Owaisi said today, what Mr. Baby said today, what Ms. Mufti said today, which seemed to suggest that there was an attempt to rationalize the Hamas terror, is right? Yes or no?
I will not rationalize any terror, including Hamas terror and Israeli terror. I stand with the cause of the Palestinian people. I stand for that.
Do you believe that
India
Mr.
stands for
Owaisi,
that.
Mr. Baby and Ms.
India-
Mufti are wrong?
No.
Take a position.
My dear friend, I make it very clear. I have a position which supports the people of Palestine.
Okay, so the people
cause
of
of peace of
Palestine,
Palestine.
sir, a large number of people in Palestine in 2008 voted the Hamas. People who vote a terror organization with a xenophobic outlook, what would you call them, sir?
My friend, many people in Israel also voted for Netanyahu, the symbol of
Sir,
terror
I'm
in
asking
Israel.
you this question.
What
What
do you
would
say
you
about
call
that?
the people of
No, I am asking
Palestine
you this
who
question.
voted?
I am
Sir,
asking this question to you.
I am
Lot
asking you
of
a simple
people in
question.
Israel,
Okay, let me answer.
I am
Can you
ask-
show me?
I-
Can you show me?
I am asking you a simple
Can you
question.
show me?
I am
Can you
asking
show
you a
me
simple
in the
question, simple
manifesto of the? Can you show me in the manifesto of the government that is ruling today, the parties that are ruling today, any statement which has the same equivalent of what the Hamas says in its charter?
This is your mistake. You want to
okay.
equate me.
Let me
with
bring
you.
in a senior
You want to
fellow of
equate
the
me with
ORF.
You are.
Sir, you can attack me.
here to make
You're not going to
advocacy
get
for
under my skin.
Israeli terrorism. I am here
Sir,
not
you can
for
attack me.
advocacy of
You're
Hamas.
evaded 3 of my
You are
questions.
badly mistaken.
I asked you to take a position and tell me,
No,
what would you
I
call
cannot- I
people
cannot
who
answer a simple
vote
question.
for an
You
organization
did
that
not ask
declares
me-
itself
you did not ask
as
me
a
a single
xenophobic
question, Mr.
organization committed to the
people,
complete
you
annihilation
people
of the
who are
Jewish
very much-
people? What would you call people who vote for them? You didn't answer that question. You started attacking me. You drew a false equivalence. It doesn't stand up. Let me bring Sushant Sareen.
30 seconds.
Sushant Sareen, yes. How would you respond to the CPI MP Binoy Viswam, who says Israel is a terrorist state? So, deal with it.
Yeah, it's rich coming from the communists when they talk about terrorism and terror states, considering that when the states which communist parties have ruled, how many simply so that they could push their ideology, and all in the name of the welfare of the people. So I'm not surprised by the incoherent illogic of the communist MP, with all due respect. But so here is the thing, this moral equivalence which is drawn, I think it's repugnant. I don't think the Israelis catch hold of Palestinian women, strip them naked, butcher them, carry out mass rapes in the midst of dead bodies, mutilate bodies, parade them on the streets, and all those unspeakable crimes that we have seen. And these are not some candid camera. These are deliberately shot images which have been plastered around TV screens very, very proudly. And we have people, including in India, politicians, so-called intellectual class, the leftists in particular, the so-called liberal class, which has tried to whitewash, which has tried to justify, which has tried to legitimize these crimes by drawing false equivalences. Rahul, I think the position which the Prime Minister took was the correct position, and I'll tell you why. He did not do any monkey balancing this time. There was an outrage which happened. India has a position. India's traditional position has been that we are interested in a two-state solution, and the Palestinian rights must be respected. All of that is there, and we deal with the Palestinians, we deal with the Israelis. But when an outrage takes place, It's like Dante said, that in a time of grave moral crisis, if you adopt a position of neutrality, then the worst place of hell is reserved for you. Thankfully, it is not reserved for us this time. We've taken a clear-cut position that Hamas has carried out a terror attack and India stands with what has happened with Israel. The larger political question on what the political settlement should be, should not be, what the history of those negotiations have been, I don't know how informed the member of parliament from the CPI is about how those, the 25 years of 30 years of dialogue which has gone on, how close they came to a solution and how the Palestinians kicked it because they had a maximalist position. We've seen all of that. I don't know whether he's aware of it. Probably not, because the communists are only aware of a couple of things and then it's all rhetoric. But there have been attempts to solve this issue, right? The point is that that's a separate issue and we can discuss it. Whether Israel is right, Israel is wrong. There are many issues on which we can have disagreements with the Israeli policy. In fact, Israelis themselves have disagreements within themselves. It's a democratic society. Many people protest about certain policies that their government follows, which is fair enough. That's a democracy, right? But when an outrage like this takes place, and then you do, yes, I condemn the Hamas, but I also condemn this. You are trying to draw a moral equivalence. And then you are trying to dilute the outrageous crimes that were committed by these terrorists. That's what you are trying to do. Take an unequivocal position.
Okay.
Like, I believe that, yes, there is a political thing. We can discuss it. I might have one position. The gentleman from the CPI might have one position. Anand might have a third position. And we can discuss it without chopping off each other's heads.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We can discuss this.
Yeah.
And we can agree to disagree and we can talk further and then try and narrow down our positions, which is what negotiations are all about.
Okay,
But if
so
I go and hold a gun to everybody's head and I say I'm going to chop off your neck until and unless you agree with me, and I will do it because it's a religious duty ordained on me by my religion.
That's right. That becomes problematic.
Then it's a problem.
It's a problem. And what if that same group, Dr. Ranganathan, what if that same group, and I'm quoting Article 13 from the Charter, also says, initiatives and so-called peaceful solutions in international conferences are in contradiction to the principles of the Islamic resistance movement. There is no solution to the Palestinian question except by jihad. Now, who votes for a party like that?
No, absolutely. But Rahul, first of all, can I please send you my address for you to give us gift hampers, because you made us listen to our good friend Mr. Binoy for 11 minutes. I can't remember, even in JNU, I haven't heard the harebrained rationalizations of communists for more than 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. And for him saying that he's CPI, not CPIM, well, that's a line. You're saying somebody's Al-Zawahiri and not Osama bin Laden. But as by way of analogy, by the way. But let me just expose him in 10 seconds flat. He says he fights for persecuted Muslims everywhere, including Palestine, right? Can this CPI MP, Mr. Binoy, unequivocally condemn China for interning 1.5 Uyghur Muslims in 1.5 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps and feeding them pork and mass sterilizing them? Condemn China right now.
And call China a terrorist state.
To me,
yes, sir. Question to you. Yes.
I shall do it provided you condemn the BJP government in Manipur, who nakedly paraded a woman, 2 women in Manipur.
Sir, you know it's not the BJP government that paraded any lady. Please, that's not right. That's a factual inaccuracy. I'm sorry, that doesn't fly. That doesn't even fly. That doesn't fly.
Then you ran to China.
Okay.
From Israel, you ran to China.
But when Muslims are being held in concentration camps in China, cat gets their tongue.
This is your way of debate.
It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. Let me open this up further. Let me bring in Mr. Ahmed Ayaz. Mr. Ayaz, thank you for joining us. I'm asking a very simple question. By supporting Palestinians who voted for Hamas bigotry, genocidal tendencies, are you enabling the genocide of Jews?
No, you see, this is what during your, initially you spoke about, and you tried to give it a direction of, Jews versus Muslims. I don't think that is an issue. Issue is basically a territorial issue, and
how is that? Excuse me,
conflict
Mr. Ayaz. No, I didn't give the direction. I just want to make it very clear. Rahul Shivshankar is not cooking up hard facts. I want to bring the hard facts of the charter of the Hamas. They have given it this direction. The Hamas was voted to power. The Hamas is the government in the Gaza Strip right now. I didn't do it. This is what they say. The charter preface: Israel will exist and continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it, unquote. These are not my words, sir. So please stand corrected. I am not spreading bigotry.
That's what I say.
It is the Hamas that spreads bigotry. And I am asking you, sir, if Palestinians voted for these articles, these mission statements, do you think they deserve your support, Mr. Ahmed Ayaz? You come from a state where Hindus, you came from a state where Hindus, there was a genocide against Hindus, sir. Do you support that genocide? If you don't support it, how can you support it of Jews?
Palestinians must have maybe their own reasons to vote for the
genocidal.
Hamas, that they must be knowing
they
better.
Must have
but
their
the point
reasons
is,
to vote for genocidal.
But the point is that
on.
when you
what
say that it is Jews versus Muslims, that's not acceptable. Why? Because any Muslim believes,
I have not said it, Mr. Ayaz.
That everybody has a right to Israel.
Deliberately dog whistling you.
Ahmed Ayaz Saab, you are trying to suggest that I am saying this. No. It is Hamas's charter.
Yes.
Don't do this. You know what you're trying to do. You're trying to incite hate against me, the anchor, who is only stating facts, and you're being mischievous, sir. I'm asking you a question tonight.
No, this
Would you vote for the Hamas?
No, this
Would you vote for the Hamas?
Rahul.
Would you vote for the Hamas?
This is Rahul.
Would you vote for the Hamas?
How can it be?
Would you vote for the Hamas, sir? Simple question.
How can it be?
No, he's not answering.
No, how can it be? Because Hamas being a Muslim organization, they believe it that everybody has a right to his or her religion. The way we see Lakum Dinakum Waliyadin. So they
oh my God. Mr. Ayaz, look, I can't have a sensible conversation with you if you're going to be so in denial. I have showed you the charter of the Hamas organization, sir. These are hard facts. Please go off the show for 5 minutes, go onto a computer, open Google, type in the words Hamas Charter, it'll come up. In fact, the United Nations has flagged the Hamas Charter. The United Nations has said this is a document of grave concern. Please, either you don't believe in the United Nations, you don't believe in what you read, that's your problem. I can't deal with you. Hang on. Viewers, what we have seen today, excuse me, Mr. Ayaz. Excuse me, I am not going to sit here and be dog whistled by you when I'm only stating the facts, and that is very, very unfortunate what you're trying to do. But I'm just going to say this, viewers, the hard facts are there on your screens. It's the 1988 Hamas Charter. 20 years later, the Hamas won an election in 2008. On what grounds did they win the election? Because they didn't like the PLO. That was, as Sushant Sareen is saying very clearly, was working towards a negotiated solution with the government of Israel in that time to come up with some sort of a, via media, to bring peace. They in fact led the assassination of certain PLO leaders, viewers. This is the organization that rules Gaza. This is the organization today that is being enabled by Indians in our country who have only a vested political interest. That's all. And I'm saying it, they can sue me.